Dave Cottle is the head coach of the Chesapeake Bayhawks. The Bayhawks are defending MLL champions. They open their 2013 season on April 27th on the road, not actually on the road, but against Rochester in Tampa, Florida. Coach, thanks for making time for us. Let me just start with this. How was the off season? Have you guys come down yet from the high of winning it all?
Excuse me. Yeah, well, it's funny. When you win a title, you wonder what your players are going to look like when they get back for training camp. And we've been in training camp for 2 consecutive weeks, and our older guys came back in phenomenal shape. So as a coach, you never really get a time to look back. You're always looking forward, and hopefully the players are the same way, and they have been so far in our training camp so far this year.
So everybody's in shape. Nobody's big-headed?
We have not suffered from a case of success flu as of yet.
As of yet, but you'll find out pretty early, I guess. What are the changes, if any, with the team that's coming back?
Well, we kind of blew it up in 2011 after the 2011 season, and we were very successful, as a team, very consistent, 5-2 at home, 5-2 on the road. So we didn't have to make a lot of changes. We've had 2 guys, John Orson and Dan Gladding, who's retired. We've returned 99% of our team, and we have a couple younger players that we drafted, Matt McCready's and Grant Kaleko, that have stepped up and may help us while we have our guys playing in the indoor league. So we haven't changed a lot. Our core defense, our goalies, our midfield, and our attack are about the same. So it's going to be basically the same team. You
like the schedule, the way it lays out?
Well, the older you get, the more, the more you just try to concern yourself with who you are as a team and work on individual improvement of your team. And, last year we made a business decision for the Bayhawks not to play any home games in July because of, it gets so
too
warm
hot.
and too hot. And also a lot of people go to the beach. And so we played 4 consecutive games on the road. And when that was over, I said, whew. I didn't really like that, but it was something that I thought was in the best interest of our franchise. So this year we actually have 3 weekends away in July and 1 at home, a Thursday night game against Boston and Paul Rabel, who's a big draw in the league. So, you're going to have to play these teams sometime. And it doesn't really cross my mind to worry about when we play.
We're talking to Dave Cottle. He's the head coach of the Chesapeake Bayhawks, the defending champs. He also coached at the University of Maryland, as many people around these parts know, for a while, and brought them back to national prominence. You've been in this area for a long, long time now, and I'm just curious, when you visit other areas of the country, would you describe sort of the Baltimore, Washington, area and everything in between as the number 1 lacrosse area in the country, or is there another area where it's just as popular?
Well, I think there's great players in a lot of areas. I would say that the interest in the community, in the business community especially, there's no place like the Baltimore, Washington area. You've got successful businessmen all across in major corporations and finance and sales that are either graduates of a lacrosse team or very close to players that play lacrosse that have a distinct interest in the sport. So this area is different, and there's so many powerful people that are former lacrosse players than I think than a lot of different areas.
Is that Coach, what makes the league really potentially viable? It has been viable, more than viable, for a long time now, launched back in 2001, is that in areas like this, you've got prominent business people who are associated with the sport as younger people, definitely in college, and the demographics, if you will, of the audience are favorable.
Without question. It's definitely the sponsors. Lacrosse gets a bad rep, and sometimes deservingly so, that, it's only rich guys that wind up playing the sport. With that happening, it helps us with local sponsors. It helps us with local businesses. And I really believe the league's at a tipping point. I think it could really go kind of like the NFL went, in that if we can expand to some more cities while the base of the high schools are growing. Florida, for instance, is up to, I think, over 60 programs playing. They're looking to expand to Atlanta, Georgia, which is another area that is exploding in the high school. That if we can put a quality game together and a quality entertainment. So, like when you go to football, it's more than just the football game. The football game is the most important piece, but it's the tailgating before the game. It's the entertainment. It's the people watching. It's who you see. If we could do all that, then we have a shot to be a very successful league.
You know, and from that end, and some people listening to this aren't nearly as familiar with the sport as you are and others are. I had the opportunity a few times to go to the Final Four when it was at M&T Stadium in Baltimore, and it really is a scene. I mean, there's a whole scene around the games. The sport itself is, you know, I've got younger kids who play it, and like I've said to parents who aren't familiar with the sport that, you know, lacrosse is one of those sports. If you can play lacrosse, it helps with a lot of other sports. You know, there are a lot of those things involved, whether it be coordination, vision, you know, speed, spacing, that whole thing that really sort of apply to other sports as well. You agree with that?
I agree with that 100%. There are so many guys that have made All-American in college that were football players or basketball players that picked up the sport late because of those pick-and-roll concepts and the spacing concepts and the give-and-go concepts offensively, that once they get their stick work underneath them, it's very familiar to them, whether, you know, unsettled if it's a 3-on-2 or a 4-on-3. So, you know, good athletes that understand how to play sports can pick this thing up really quickly.
Coach, thanks so much. We'll chat next week in preparation for your opener, but congrats on last season, and I think people are excited about the season that you're about to undertake. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, and the chase is on.
Yes, it is.